It brings those taxes down to zero on basically all American manufactured products, a huge win for agriculture. Because now the people of Japan are going to be in a better position to enjoy American beef and American pork. Which up until this point, even though we're much more efficient producers, has been tagged with a tax that makes our products uncompetitive in Japanese markets. So this is a big deal. And I think Speaker Ryan would like to try to get it done. And there are both proponents and opponents of this in both Democratic and Republican parties. And so it's going to be an interesting situation where we're going to have to stitch together the same kind of bipartisan effort in order for us to get it done. A second area that I think is possible is criminal justice reform. There has been serious negotiations and efforts by Democrats and Republicans to create a criminal justice system that is more fair. More even-handed, more proportionate, and is smarter about how we reduce crime. And I've really been impressed by the dedication of a core group of Democrats and Republicans, some of them. The most liberal Democrats and the most conservative Republicans coming together saying this is the right thing to do. We've got a good bill in the Senate that passed with bipartisan support out of committee. My hope is that gets to the floor, and that we can pair it up with a good bill out of the House. And this is an area where you potentially can see us save money, reduce recidivism. Make sure that people who make a mistake on nonviolent crimes have to pay the price, have to serve time, but are released in a reasonable fashion. that they have more support so that they're less likely to go back into the criminal system subsequently. And that's an area where I think we may be able to make a big difference. So those are just two examples. We'll keep on looking for a number of examples like that. And wherever there's an opportunity, I'm going to take it. Philip Crowther. Question. President Obama, I think it's fair to say I was going to be. Campaigning for a Democratic nominee even without that danger. And I am very confident that we're going to have a terrific Democratic nominee. And cell phone rings. Whose phone is that? Guys. Come on, now. Somebody, you recognize your ring. Don't. Be embarrassed. Just turn it off. There you go. Okay. Can I still hear it? I think it's off now. I think we will have a strong Democratic nominee. I think that Democratic nominee will win. I think I will have a Democratic successor. And I will campaign very hard to make that happen. For a whole variety of reasons, because they're far more. Likely to share my fundamental vision about where America should go. But having said that, what I think people should also feel good about is that the agreement struck in Paris. Although not legally binding when it comes to the targets that had been set. Does create this architecture in which all around the world, countries are saying, this is where we're going. We're going to be chasing after this clean energy future. This is how we're going to meet our goals. We're going to double down on solar power. We're going to double down on wind power. We're going to invest more heavily in biofuels. We're going to figure out battery technologies. And what you saw in this budget, which I think was really significant, was an extension of the solar tax credits and wind tax credits that we had helped to really boost early on in my administration. And that resulted in wind power increasing 3-fold, solar power increasing by 20-fold. Those tax credits are now going to be extended for 5 to 7 years. And as a consequence, that combination of market signals means that the private sector is going to start investing much more heavily. They know this is coming. And it's not just coming here. It's coming around the world. So you now have a global marketplace for clean energy that is stable and accelerating over the course of the next decade. That then creates a different dynamic that is independent of what Congress does. But also helps to shape what Congress does. Because the more people that are now getting jobs in solar installation and production, the more that you have companies who are seeing how American innovation can sell products in clean energy all across the Asia Pacific and in Europe and in Africa, suddenly there's a big monetary incentive to getting this right. And that's been the history of environmental progress in this country, and now we've exported it around the world. Every time we've made a decision, you know what, we're going to have clean air. The predictions were everything would fall apart. And lo and behold, it turns out that American innovation makes getting clean air. A lot less expensive than people expected, and it happens a lot faster than expected. When we made a decision that we were going to double fuel efficiency standards on cars. Everybody said, "Oh, this is going to ruin the American auto industry." The American auto industry has been booming over the last couple years. Acid rain. When George H.W. Bush instituted a system to charge for the emissions that were causing acid rain. Everybody said, "Well, you can't do that, that's going to ruin business." And it turned out it was smoother, faster, quicker, better. And acid rain folks who were born, I don't know, some of you reporters are getting younger. Or I'm getting older, may not remember it, but that was a big deal. Now most folks don't even remember it anymore, because it got solved. And there's no reason why the same won't happen here. Now, do I think that there's going to be a lot of noise and campaigning next year about how we're going to stop Paris in its tracks? There will probably be a lot of noise like that. Do I actually think that, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, even Republican members of Congress are going to look at it and say, "That's a smart thing to do"? I don't think they will. Keep in mind that, right now, the American Republican Party is the only major party. that I can think of in the advanced world that effectively denies climate change. I mean, it's an outlier. Many of the key signatories to this deal, the architects of this deal, come from center-right governments. Even the far-right parties in many of these countries, they may not like immigrants. For example, but they admit, yes, the science tells us we've got to do something about climate change. So my sense is that this is something that may be an advantage in terms of short-term politics and a Republican primary. It's not something that is going to be a winner for Republicans long term. Question. President Obama, no, because, first of all, I'm not a member of that party. Second of all, it didn't stop us from being the key leader in getting this done. I mean, this is something I've been working on now for 5, 6 years. When I went to Copenhagen, I essentially engaged in 24 hours of diplomacy to salvage from a pretty chaotic process the basic principle that all countries had to participate. That we couldn't have a rigid division between developed countries and developing countries when it came to solving this problem. That was the initial foundation for us then working with other countries. Culminating in the joint announcement with China, bringing in India, bringing in Brazil and the other big emerging countries, working with the Europeans and getting this done. This would not have happened without American leadership. And, by the way, the same is true for the Iran nuclear deal. The same is true for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The same is true for stamping out Ebola something. You guys may recall from last year, which was the potential end of the world. At each juncture, what we've said is that American strength and American exceptionalism is not just a matter of us bombing somebody. More often, it's a matter of us convening, setting the agenda, pointing other nations in a direction that's good for everybody and good for U.S. interests, engaging in painstaking diplomacy, leading by example. And sometimes the results don't come overnight, they don't come the following day, but they come. And this year, what you really saw was that steady, persistent leadership on many initiatives that I began when I first came into office. All right. I've got April Ryan. Question. President Obama, well, we're going to defeat ISIS. And we're going to do so by systematically squeezing them, cutting off their supply lines, cutting off their financing. Taking out their leadership, taking out their forces, taking out their infrastructure. We're going to do so in partnership with forces on the ground that sometimes are spotty. Sometimes need capacity building, need our assistance. Need our training, but we're seeing, steadily, progress in many of these areas. And so they're going to be on the run.